This is DK, Theta Log, February 20th, 2023. Sorry, I took a little bit of time to do the Theta Logs. It's been, a few weeks. However, we've been having a lot of meetings. We made a lot of fundamental decisions. A lot of work is getting done in regards to V3. So happy to jump in this week and give you guys an update. This morning, we released a keynote on a light paper version of the exchange layer, the base layer. So get cozy. It's about a 40-minute video, 40-minute video. Get cozy and watch that. I think it's super relevant and super detailed in terms of how the base layer will work. And so if you didn't understand how the range orders will work from the white paper and whatnot, then I think it gives some good visualizations. So I encourage you to make sure to watch that this week. So last time we reviewed the base layer, so I'm not going to get into that, or you can watch the video. But in regards to the vault layer, or I'm kind of playing around with this term depot. I'll get more into that in another video, why I want to call it depot. Nonetheless, the vault layer is where your traditional V2 experience will live, right? So the iVault surface will be routed to the vault layer. The vault layer is where any strategy can take place and use the clearing and settlement rails of the base layer to complete those trades, right? So similar to how it works right now is that a user can come in and then we quote them a price on V2 that will live at the vault layer. You can still deposit liquidity and you can still use our pricing algorithm to then sell liquidity for you, but it also will be the counterparty to if you come to the base layer and the user interface and decide to buy an option with us, right? So if you're just looking for a set and forget option, you would remove your liquidity from V2 and you would drop it into the vault layer. All right. On launch, we will have a few vaults, all being the DMM strategy. I'll get into that in a second. But for sure, we will have ETH and BTC, and then knock on wood, hopefully a premium vault as well. I'll get into that in a second as well. But look, the strategies that people can create are kind of endless. This is where your straddles would come in. This is where your like traditional delta selling, weeklies would come in. There's no shortage of where you can take a vault strategy. We're asking the community. You already have one community member that has started working on a vault for V3. If you're interested in doing that, come and have a discussion with us. But they'll be composable and open. They can plug into our rails. They don't need any sort of approval. There'll be the ones that the Premia sponsored ones, the ones that Premia is building in-house will definitely be 4626 standard. We encourage everyone else to use that standard as well because, again, composability and the DeFi building blocks, it plays in really nicely, especially if you were to utilize a vault asset as collateral in a lending market or something like this. Liquidity mining, at least for the initial launch, will live at the vault layer. Right, we have some ways that we can implement it within the base level pools. However, that won't be available at launch. The liquidity mining and that approval flow will work through on-chain governance. A vault will be deployed. It will then go through on-chain governance to be eligible for liquidity mining, and then once it is approved through the governance vote, it will then be added to the list of approved pools that you can then use the manifold control on and to allocate premium rewards, right? So we'll be sunsetting in a few months after V3 launch the incentivization of V2. So we are encouraging our users to move over to V3. We will be keeping V2 architecture alive for some time. However, we will be sunsetting the liquidity mining components of that, right? At this level, there's going to be management and performance fees. What we set those initially still up for debate. However, it will be a standard Yearn type of collection of fees. We're actually been in discussions with Yearn V3 vaults to see if we want to use that as the vault layer and then plug in our strategies as components or modules. We might need to tweak a little bit of their code, but we're still kind of working on that. And then again, like I said, at launch, we will have the designated the market maker vault. That will be that traditional V2 offering. Knock on wood, hopefully we'll be able to do a premium version of this. However, our research team is hard at work in building that strategy and connecting it to our base layer. So we'll definitely have ETH in wrapped Bitcoin, and that will have a standard. I think that it'll have a range in which that it's looking to buy options and sell options, and it will kind of concentrate liquidity within those timeframes and strike prices. However, anyone can come in and build a vault on top, and then if it goes through that on-chain governance process, it can be up for liquidity mining incentives as well. We have some really cool new ways that we'll be doing liquidity mining. It won't be the standard one token per pro rata for your amount of liquidity in the pool as a whole. We got some cool things that we'll be adding to that play into the base layer even. I'll go over that in another video. So the message network. Okay, so this is probably the most abstract for most of our regular users, but I think this is going to be a game changer. Now, what the message network is it allows for aggregation of different inventory sources, right? So I like to use the Llama Swap, DeFi Llama's swap functionality as kind of a base level of what you can kind of expect, but only in an options environment, right? So there'll be multiple different components. There's request for quote. I'll go over an example of that in a second. There's order and inventory aggregation, right? So there are many different inventory sources in V3, right? So we have the base layer, right, where liquidity providers at the base layer will be buying and selling options within the range, right? We also have the ability to kind of set limit orders. So if you're not looking to be a market maker on both sides of the trade and buying and selling, and you only want, you're only interested in a certain option with a certain strike and a call within a certain premium price, you can put those limit orders in. I need to get back to you if limit orders will be at launch or slightly thereafter, but that is the goal. Now, it's going to be a hybrid on an off-chain structure. So we've been meeting with a lot of different infrastructure providers. We've been looking at a lot of different ways to implement this. We're set in how we are going to do it. But the mechanism in which will happen is that you can you can connect to the network, and then there will be a gasless way for you to create those orders, right? And then those will be then we'll pay for the relay cost of putting those on chain because it'll be quite inexpensive. And then we're monitoring all those events, and it's going to be not on Arbitrum 1, it's going to be on another chain. However, if we're listening to the events that happen on this secondary data chain, as Froggy likes to call it, then it's easy for us to do the matchmaking, right? So we'll pay for the gas within a certain amount of requests. And then if you are more of a market maker and you're looking for higher trade volumes, you'll be doing a lot of cancel and corrects and whatnot, then there is going to be an API credentialing process in which that will give you direct access to the network. And you can, essentially, you can still place all of your orders, and then you're paying us you're paying for your own gas, essentially, but you can still use our base infrastructure. Right. At Go Live, we will have an SDK that is a dev kit in which that there will be certain API components so you can connect to the message network. There will be, the access to the traditional order book, which is at the base layer. There is the event subscriptions. So let's say that I am constantly looking to buy a certain strike and expiration, and I'm willing to pay this much money. So every time someone comes in and is looking to sell that, then you will get a notification that someone's trying to sell that. So you can then either place a bid if you don't already have one resting, and that's where we get to this RFQ components, right? And then as well as that, as well as those other things in the SDK, we'll have some front end components. So there will be a little add-on iframe type embed that you can do similar to like the Uniswap swap app, so that if you are not, if you want to, support Premia on your front end, then that's something that you can do, and we'll give you everything out of the box in terms of for the user interface, connecting to that network, aggregating orders, and like I stated, similar to the DeFi Llama swap, you come in, you put what you want, and then it will start through a webhook. It will start feeding you all of those different inventory sources, right? And it's going to be live. If someone comes in and says, "Actually, I want to buy that," right? Because there's going to be a lot of programmatic elements to this. I want to buy that option. I'm going to bid lower than anyone else that's currently sitting on that aggregation, right? And then that would pop up at the top as the recommended one that you choose because the total cost is the least, right? There's a lot of different elements that come into this because there's obviously the different Oracle pricing. Now there's an added component that we are allowing for permissionless pooling. So there might be an ETH DAI pool, there might be an ETH USDC pool, there might be an ETH USDT pool. And so if you want to buy an ETH option, the cheapest might be USDT. However, on our front end, we're only kind of encouraging you to use USDC, but we still want to provide that to the users if that pool exists and there's a lot of trading activity and the depth it makes it the cheapest trade. We want users to see that. We don't want them to be pigeonholed into just ETH USDC. So, however, we'll try to funnel people into certain pools to reduce fragmentation. They're permissionless. So we want to make sure that users are getting the best bang for their buck. Okay, so how does request for quote work? How will it actually showcase? So Roderick actually did a really good job of putting together a little demo of this. Maybe we'll do that. I think we have a community call this week. I need to double check that. I think we have a community call on Thursday. Maybe I'll do a little run through of that. But the way that would work is you come to the UI, you say, I want to buy an ETH call at 1700 and a week expiration. What would then happen is then the message network will then collect all of the orders for that product and then showcase that to you in a UI in a list of maybe the top 5 in terms of the least total cost, ordered and sorted in a certain way in which that the cheapest one is at the top. And then it will also give you some information regarding, okay, is this using a unique set of oracles? Is this using our preferred oracles, Chainlink, whatever. And then if there's someone plugged into that network, they will receive a notification that someone is trying to buy this option. So again, I don't expect this to be very a manual way of doing things. This is going to be programmatic trading for market makers and whatnot, in which that they're like, oh, this is a type of risk that I want to underwrite, and so they would then submit an order to the network, and the network is constantly updating, and that would show up as the top priced option on their front end. Now, whether or not we do it in a cow swap type way, where a user then says, okay, I'm willing to buy this or the next best price within this certain risk criteria, and then there's like a 30-second time window in which that anyone on the RFQ network can submit orders, and if it's a better price within the same risk framework, then we'll just match it to the lower price. We're still kind of figuring those components out. However, there will be multiple factors at play and a lot of aggregation, but we want to provide the best user experience. So the user would come in and be like, okay, I want to pick this option, I want to buy it, or maybe the lowest price is not necessarily the best oracle. Maybe it's using 2 Uniswap TWAP oracles, and I want to use one that just uses Chainlink oracles, and so I'll pick the next best price. Then they'll confirm that, and then the payoff, our traditional payoff structure will show on your screen in a modal, and then you hit confirm and submit that transaction. All right, timelines. What everyone wants to talk about. Okay, so Parliament applications are live; those are up. I encourage you to come and join the conversations. We're going to be folding those individuals more into both getting to experience the product. We're going to be doing, obviously, like power user feedback sessions in the upcoming weeks. And we'll kind of lean on those people to be candidates in terms of like information dispersal. It is a paid position. I have everything up on the community site, so go take a look at that and apply if you're interested. The window will be up until the end of ETH Denver, and then at that point we'll do elections. Academy is still progressing. A lot of cool stuff in Academy. We're going to have some reputation. We're going to have some dynamic badging. I'll get more into that in the next slide. But we'll have a MVP of the Academy up before launch. However, some of the more intricate features hopefully we'll have done by the time of launch. And then there may be some feature gating when it comes to the margin implementation, in which that you have to complete an Academy course before margin is enabled on your account, and that those things kind of all play into each other. So V3, in terms of timelines, we're looking at front end being done roughly around March 17th. We're looking at smart contracts being done between March 10th and March 17th. The base layer is pretty close to completion. We folded in our auditors last week, so they're starting to catch up with all the different features and looking at the code, and so that'll be ongoing for the next few weeks. However, the Vault component and the RFQ integrations, some are done, some are not done. The strategies on the vaults is what I mean when I say the smart contracts that need to still be completed and tested, and that will be closer to mid-March. And so with all the different moving components, we think that by the end of March, we will be good to go. However, we want to enable some economic testing like we did last time. So I think we'll do something like a trading competition where we have a bunch of users that come in and either use a test net or we just kind of do some sort of gated experience. And hopefully everything will be good to go, and we'll do a full launch of everything in that first phase by sometime in April. So I still think that we're pretty close to our original date of end of Q1, but we probably want some more testing. So we'll bring everyone into the fold, but I don't think that there's going to be any significant delays there. On-chain Gov, that's going to be coming out at the same time. We'll probably use third-party tools like a Tally or a Boardroom to kind of manage some of that process until we can build out a full front end for that. However, I don't think that would be a go-live blocker. And then obviously Margin and Omnichain will be coming in subsequent releases. And so because there's so many different parameters, some of the margin like smart contracts are at least the economics and the algorithms are kind of complete. However, there's so much complexity into margin maintenance, initial margin. Our margin calculations are not static. We have the eyeball surface that plays into them. So the more volatility of the assets that you're holding, the difference in how much you'll have to have in your margin account before will allow you to either underwrite or buy options. And so because of all that complexity, that will be, probably thinking May for that, end of May. And then sometime during the summer will be the Omnichain implementation. So definitely go live. We'll be on Arbitrum, and then we'll figure out the Omnichain components. And then from a user perspective, it should be seamless. It should be abstracted to if your collateral is held on, Optimism, but then we don't have to get into fragmented liquidity and we can still route the orders in a proper way. We have a few different ways that we're experimenting in how to do this properly. And there are some things that don't exist yet from a state oracle, so you can pull in the states of different chains. So we're kind of talking and having the discussion with different groups of how we can achieve this. And if not, then we'll have to build it ourselves, which is not the preferred outcome. All right. So like I said, product scoping was the last 2 weeks. We have all of our deadlines in place. We have, a numerous amount of tickets and action items that we are completing across the various teams in the stack. However, we're slowly going to start releasing more information as we finalize things. So like, the light paper keynote that the professor released today, the exchange layer is done for the most part. We're going to be deploying contracts to the testnet this week and then start, plugging in the front end. So as we continue to complete and finalize different parts, we'll be putting out more videos like that. Um, we've been having a lot of different conversations with infrastructure providers. So from a redundancy perspective of having, multiple graph providers, multiple wallet authentication providers, different ways that we can do analytics, self-service analytics. Um, and then also from a like security perspective of smart contract notifications, monitoring, all that jazz. We've already onboarded some of those people, some of those vendors. We already started integration and we've done the testing. So now it's those discussions were had over the last 2 weeks. And now it's just a matter of building out the coding frameworks and how those redundancies will then do the failover services, right? So if our main graph goes down, we have a redundancy to go back to another graph. We have a lot more functionality in terms of reverts to previous versions of the graph without having to wait 36 hours for a graph sync to happen. A lot of stuff on the foundational developer side. Again, like I said, Parliament applications are live. That's the Council of 10 of the people that we're going to be bringing into the fold. It's going to be a 6-month term. I don't expect it to be more than 20 hours a month. However, they'll be our main sounding board and main information dispersal group in the coming months. And then they'll also do a lot of the foundation elements of the DAO as well. Right, so as part of the academy and as part of the really cool stuff that you can do with reputation and protocol loyalty and like looking at the amount of trades that you've done, how much liquidity you've provided, what your staking amount time length is, what your staking amount influence is. There's really cool stuff that you can do with achievements and badging. And so, if one person comes in and, there's a way for us to abstract out your wallet from knowing how integrated you are to the community, right? Like if you've been around for 2 years, you've been using the platform continuously, or you're a high volume trader, or you're a large liquidity provider, we have a partner in place. We're looking. We think we've decided it, but we're at the final stages there to be able to allow for this. I hate the word gamification, but allow for this like achievement level and showcase of, I've been with the protocol for so long. I constantly am a power user, but there's no way for us to really, if you're just a Discord member, there's no way for us to tell that without you providing your wallet address to us, right? So the third party that is a front runner right now has a level of privacy protection in place in which that you have a dynamically updating avatar or badge, whatever you want to call it, in which that these certain criterias are then ingrained to the image of that badge, right? So we don't see who your wallet address is. We don't see like some of your social accounts. However, you can showcase that, I'm a diamond tier staker or whatever. So really cool stuff there. Really cool stuff that you can do with the academy. I think that's the future. And so we're going to be, investing heavily into it in the next few months. Token Terminal finally submitted that. They're working on that. And then ETH Denver. So some of the members of our group are going to be mentors at ETH Denver. We going to have a decent amount of participation within the team. Outside the core dev group is still working on V3. We have them chained to the desk. However, there will be some people at ETH Denver, so we will be doing an event with Alchemix. Reach out to me in the Discord if you don't have that link already, and I'll give it to you. But from a communication perspective, a lot of the people in the comms group, and myself included, will be at ETH Denver. So, there may be less participation in the Discord over the next 2 weeks while we're meeting with some critical groups at ETH Denver, and then also like utilizing ETH Denver as a hiring channel. Alrighty, development. All right, so no issues to report. Just from a statistics, TVL is relatively unchanged. I actually didn't even change that from the last time I did it. So you can ignore the negative 5% ETH, negative 7% USD. However, it is relatively unchanged. However, from a volume perspective, week over week, we're up 50%. It was one of the biggest weeks in a long time. 5.5 million in notional. Now, if you're following DeFi Llama, we were number one in volume 2 days in the last week. So super happy about that. 80K in premiums. In the last like 3 weeks, it was the best week. The last time I did the Theta Log, we were at 100K in premiums. That was the best week since this last week. We've been starting to have some discussions about like what is our zero knowledge strategy, because there's like some really cool stuff that you can do with bulletproofs and like dark pools and like Prime, if you're familiar with the Prime broker, and like omnibus structures of, you know, you having being able to do trades but still not being able to let counterparties know exactly or at least on chain exactly who you are. There's some really cool stuff that you can do there. So we're starting to look at that, but that's probably like a year away. We're going to want to let that ZK proofs mature a little bit before we kind of step into that space, but we're thinking about it. Like I said, exchange layer, we're starting, we folded the auditors in. We're going to be deploying testnet contracts to testnet so that we can start plugging in to do the front end building on that, as well as the RFQ. So this in the top right hand corner is the RFQ network setup between the on-chain and the off-chain components, as well as the like API credentialing, how the messages work, how event subscriptions work. It's pretty dynamic. We are looking for a DevOps engineer if you are interested in a role like that. We have some candidates in the pipeline already, but you know, so as part of this RFQ network, we're going to need some sort of 24-hour SLA support. So we're kind of looking at people from different time ranges so that we can make sure that we have the proper people on call in the event that anything negative were to occur, because we do have on and off-chain components of that. However, the off-chain components are more for ease of use, but anyone can, you know, run the same infrastructure that we are in terms of like the indexing of the order book and all of that jazz. However, you probably don't want to pay that infrastructure cost, so that's why we're providing it. And then last but not least, so I have on the community page some project reporting. It gets updated daily. I also have like DeFi Llama stats in there. I found this like cool thing that like screenshots these too, so you can like look at what the stats were in any given time frame. At least since I've been recording it the last like 3 weeks or so. However, that will be kind of I'll do a good job. I promise to do a good job of trying to update that at least weekly, because I'm like syncing GitHub projects, I'm syncing the Notion, I'm syncing like the Asana, and it's a dashboard of all the Asana items, right? So there is some manual intervention that I need to do in terms of like closing some items in Asana, because I am routing based on the different dev architecture that we're using. And I think that's it. I'll be doing on the Theta Log next week. I'll be looking at those alloc points. So I discussed last week and how we're thinking about the different cross-chain liquidity mining, and it's going to be based on where the VX premia is sitting as of record date, and then we'll use that as a proportion to reallocate the total liquidity mining incentives to the chain, which makes the most sense. And so I will put together those stats next week, and then we will also announce what the record date will be, so that we can make sure that everyone has their VX premium on their preferred chain in terms of, you know, the next, you know, probably 3 months in which all of that premium will be allocated. And then as we roll into V3 and the new manifold control elements, that should be seamless. Thanks everyone. It was a long call, but have a good rest of your day. Talk to you soon.